Because you know, in the real world, your catchment area, like whatever rain falls in your catchment area will flow into the ground and into the rivers and such, as you pull water out of the rivers and the ground. And it should kind of, you know, it balances out, right? So every liter or gallon, if you're American, every gallon of water you pull out of the ground, that came from rainfall. So every gallon of water that falls from the sky as rain, you can pull back out of the ground and use sustainably, because the rain will replenish it as long as the rainfall is relatively stable. And it isn't always stable, right? Sometimes there's droughts. So you know, there's the rate at which you at which the rain falls, and then there's the rate at which you pull water out. And as long as they mostly balance out, then you're fine. And yeah, and so the Romance of the Three Kingdoms, this game series, has a similar thing. Like your population will grow over time, except that you need to draw the population into your military. You need to conscript them into your military if you want to go to war. But if you do that, then there's fewer civilians left, and so the rate at which you get money and food reduces, because those are farmers. So if they're not soldiers, then they're farmers. So they kind of pay taxes and grow food. Rice. They grow rice because they're Chinese. And they also reproduce, and so the bigger the population of your city, the faster it grows every month, because there's more people to make more babies, and so everything snowballs. But then you can't just focus entirely on the economy, because people will attack you because you're at war with other people, and so you need to balance the military with the civilian side. And then you have to kind of figure out where to spend your money. You can spend it to develop the agriculture, you can spend it to train your soldiers, you can spend it to build defenses for your city, and so on and so forth. So it's just like an economic and political simulation. I mean, there's political intrigue as well, but that's because everything is NPCs. It's not that sophisticated. So the people are, you know, they're basically robots because they're all computer controlled. So the intrigue is a little bit fake. it's a little bit wooden, because it's all computer controlled. But there's that too, so you kind of have to manage people's loyalty, right? Like, you know, if you don't, like, some people are naturally inclined towards certain people, but if you kind of give them a pay bonus, then they're happier, and then so even if somebody doesn't really like you, you can just kind of pay them a bit more every month, and they'll like you more, and then they won't rebel. If they don't like you, they'll rebel. Sometimes they will like work with the enemy to betray you in the middle of a battle, and they just kind of switch sides in the middle of a battle. I mean, that's amazing. So it's an economic simulation, and it's a political intrigue simulation, and it's a military simulation. All of those things. And those are, I mean, the games like that I found interesting. Just big, long strategies, big, long, complex strategies. And I would like Total War. I don't know if you've played the Total War series. It started off with Shogun Total War, and then there was Medieval Total War, and then there was Rome Total War, and then there was Medieval 2 Total War, and then there's a bunch of other games. What is it? What was the one after Medieval 2? There's Empire. What was the one before Empire? Oh, there was Empire, and then there's Napoleon. So a Total War is war simulation. And I would like that series, except I have an issue with the AI. So in that game, again, it's this economic slash military simulation where you have cities, you have armies. Some games you have generals, some games you don't really need generals. This I'm concerned about. So so again, like in similar to the Romance of the Three Kingdoms, like you have to kind of balance between economic development to get monies, and then spending that money on an army to go to war, to get more cities that you can develop to get more money, and then go to war again. The simulation is not as, how should we call it? It's not as hardcore as the one in Romance of the Three Kingdoms. Like the scale of it is not quite the same. So Total War is a little bit more arcadey, if that makes sense. It's like you feel like you're playing a game. Although I guess, I mean, they all, of course you're playing a game, but it feels a little cartoonish. And so, getting to the problem I have with the game is that in Total War, they call it Total War because they want you to be at war all the time. And they emphasize the military aspect of the game quite a bit more than they emphasize the economic aspect. Like, so there's no economic victory, if that makes sense. And this is most highlighted in the AI. So the AI, what happens is if you're not at war with anyone at any point in time, the AI, just one of them, one of the other factions would just randomly declare war on you, even if they don't have any business declaring war on you. Because the game wants you to be at war all the time, like the game is called Total War. Which, I mean, that's like the only thing that I have a problem with that series. I mean, I enjoy, especially Medieval 2, I think is my favorite. I guess Rome is also good. But it's like you don't have any period of peace, right? Like it's and when the computer does that, it's sometimes really unreasonable the way they kind of declare war on you for no reason. So like you never have full peace, which I guess if you are a certain type of player, you would prefer that. You just wanna have action all the time. But that's not really how the real world works, and it just feels a little forced to me, right? So everything else in the game is fine. That feels a little forced because, like, sometimes you kind of wanna, it is a legitimate strategy in war to just kind of have a ceasefire or like get a peace agreement, not because necessarily you want to have peace, but so that you have time to recover and to build up your forces. Like if you know that your economy is about like twice the size of the enemy's, but your current standing army is about the same size, then there's nothing wrong with like asking for peace and then spending a few years just building up your military, because if you have a better economy, then you can build a bigger army faster than your enemy. So you can build up your forces faster. So then like a few years later, then you would have a decisive advantage in your military, and then you go back into war and then you finish them off. So I mean, there's nothing like that's a perfectly fine strategy, if you don't think you can win right now, or if you think that winning right now is a little too costly, then just kind of hold back, prepare properly, and then come back when you're properly prepared. Why not? Why wouldn't you do that? But the way like Total War, the AI works is like somebody is always attacking you somewhere, no matter what you do. Not because it's a good idea for them to attack you, but just because that's how there's a hard scripting, hard programming in the AI that if you are not at war with someone at some time, then just somebody would declare war on you. Yeah, and so I'm not. Like, that's the only thing that turns me off the game. And it's not something you can adjust. I don't think, unless you, I guess if you play on the easiest, no, even if you play on the easiest difficulty level, it happens. Like, you don't get more than a few turns of peace before some idiot just declares war on you again. For no reason. Every time. But aside from that, I like Total War as well. Again, it's this kind of a economic simulation. Although, if there was some way to win economic victory, I would like that more. Like, it emphasizes the war a little too much, I think. Like, it has these systems, like you have spies and things, like you can, like, if you pile a lot of spies into an enemy city, you can get their support to go down. Like, you can get the city to revolt, and the city can like revolt and kick out the enemy forces, and it becomes like a neutral city. And then you go in with your army and you wreck the neutral city and you take it over. Without, so like, the systems are in place for you to be able, supposedly to be able to like go to war without going to war. Like, without declaring war on people, you can still like manipulate their generals, manipulate their cities into rebelling, and then either switching to your side or just kind of becoming neutral. And then when they become neutral, you take them over with your army. So without declaring war on another faction, you can just kind of make everyone neutral. So, but then the game doesn't really. I don't know. I don't know why they don't want you to do that, but they don't want you to do that apparently because the game doesn't let you have peace. I mean, I would like the way I would play if I were allowed to would be I would maintain peace with everyone, and then just use spies all day long, right? And just send my spies to enemy cities and just make them rebel, and then take them over until all they have left is their capital. I guess like you can't turn their capital because that's where their king is, and so like the capital never rebels. But that's what I would do, like if you told me to conquer the world, I wouldn't openly declare war on people unless I had an overwhelming advantage, right? You can do that in Romance of the Three Kingdoms. So you can, so in that game also you have political intrigue and you can like get people to rebel. So in that game, like if you want to like conquer a city, what I would do is I would just spend several years trying to turn all the generals in that city, just trying to get ruin their relationships, and then get them to turn. And then after I've taken all of the generals, or as many of the generals as possible, and then I would like go in with my army. Because like why do things the hard way? You know what I mean? Like why send more? Like why do the thing that will get more of your soldiers killed? So I do like those kinds of games, and I haven't really played any playthroughs of those kinds of games. I'm aware, but because I don't know if they make very good playthroughs. It's just long and slow, those games. I'm not really a Civilization player either. I mean, Civilization, again, I like the idea of it. But the actual gameplay, less so. Because, like, the difficulty in the game relies a little bit on cheating. Which I can understand because you're, like, the human player. Like, the AI in all the Civilization games have never been as smart as the human players. And so to give the AI an equal chance to win, or a slightly more equal chance to win, they basically cheat and they give the AI far better things than you can ever get. Or like like they produce things much faster and they get their research much faster. At least on the higher difficulty levels, right? So if you play on the lower difficulty levels, then it's kind of like you're just kind of stomping these AIs. If you play on the higher difficulty levels, then it feels like they're cheating, and you're like, well, they're cheating. Like you have to be okay with playing against someone you know is cheating, because they'll do wacky things like, I think it was Civilization 1. So like even if they're not building a wonder, so wonders are these special buildings that give you extra bonuses. So even if the computer is not building any wonders, or maybe Civilization 2. So if you have too many wonders and the computer is kind of behind, just before you finish a wonder, it would appear in an enemy city, even if they weren't building it before. And that's like one of the ways that the game cheats to give the other players a chance. Like the wonder just magically appears in their city, even though you know that they weren't building it and they couldn't have built it that fast. So that's one of the things that the cheating does. And again, I'm not a big fan of stuff like that. Just cause like you're playing by different rules compared to the computer, and then so you're like, for me it breaks the immersion. It breaks the sense that you're playing a game even. Because if different people play by different rules, it's not really a game. I don't know if I've talked about like game theory here, but if you consider like a game like basketball, what is basketball, right? A basketball is a set of rules that all the players have to obey, and then they score points. So like you're not allowed to kick the ball if you're playing basketball. Conversely, if you're playing soccer, you're not allowed to, unless you're the goalie, you're not allowed to pick up the ball with your hands. So these are the rules. Like you're not allowed to like travel. You're not allowed to hold the ball and run if you're playing basketball. On the other hand, if you're playing American football, you can hold the ball and run. So like, all these different games have different rules. And the game, like the rules define the game. Like if you're playing basketball and you start kicking the ball around, well then you're not playing basketball anymore. You're playing something else. And the game falls apart at that point because you're not playing the game. You're playing something else.